Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for session 2 of Elevating Digital Teams. So today you're going to hear from myself and my colleague Andrew. We'll give ourselves a short introduction in a second about lessons learned and what works in the real world using RoleModelplus, which for those of you who attended the first session will be familiar with. Those of you who have not seen the first session, it is available on the BCS YouTube channel, as will this session when it goes live probably next week. So I'd like to introduce myself first of all. My name is Sam. I'm the Key Account Manager for Defence and Government here at BCS. So working with organisations specifically within the defence and government industry, utilising tools such as RoleModelplus and some of the other products we have. And then we've also got my colleague Andrew Barnett, our BCS technical consultant, who will introduce himself.
Thanks, Sam. And firstly, thank you everybody for taking the time this afternoon. I hope you get something out of the session. So yeah, I'm Andrew. I'm one of the technical consultants here. What that simply means is I work almost exclusively with organizations large and small who've made the decision to use frameworks such as, but not solely, Sophia or government frameworks to help improve or develop their teams in a range of ways. But yeah, I'm very pleased to take the time to speak today. Sam, over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. So in today's sessions, we're going to cover off a range of sort of topics. So looking at the tool RoleModelplus, but really kind of focusing on sort of lessons learned and what works in the real world. So we'll cover off a few things, such as what successful rollouts have in common. And when we think about successful rollouts, we think about how it aligns to the organization goals. Typically how we would look at that is likely having done a proof of concept that informs approaches and evidences to interested parties. But Andrew, kind of what are your thoughts on that and some of the other topics?
Yeah, no, I mean the proof of concept is a common denominator for our most successful, for want of a better word, deployment. Some clients have been with us for a decade plus using the tool we'll probably have a little look at today, and it's because we're able to and continue to evidence how it's aligned to their evolving workforce plan. And in the early days, it was how it could initially achieve some more immediate challenges. We tend not to, or try our hardest not to use jargon. So we describe things in client terms so everyone can understand what it is which we're trying to achieve. And very importantly, we go to lengths to include other parts of an organization, HR, L&D, obviously the leadership team, and also very importantly, individuals and managers who are extremely busy, no doubt very stretched, have limited time for development. So we are mindful of a range of parties or interested parties in this endeavor. And again, the proof of concept provides us an opportunity to evidence how specifically we will improve the situation for them. So I say proof of concept and not using jargon, and evidence-based decisions and conversation. Also, the proof of concept, just finally on that point, Sam, we can recommend some approaches based on what we're hearing, but a proof of concept also enables us to hone our approach and again build advocacy. Is what I would say to that, Sam.
Lovely. Thank you, Andrew. And so I think I'll ask you on to the next one around common blockers and how we overcome them. And then I think the second two will cover off whilst looking at the tool as well. So what would you say the common blockers are when we think about using RoleModel?
Yeah, I mean, when we spoke beforehand, these are a really great set of questions and go to the heart of why these sometimes things work and don't work. Common blockers, I wouldn't say blockers as such, because it's difficult when given the opportunity to present evidence, perhaps through a proof of concept. We very much like having evidence-based decisions and conversations. Blockers, initial objections, perhaps is a better way of describing it. It's perhaps if we're working with a distinct professional community, a good example is around the cybersecurity, the cyber profession, if I can, forgive me if I'm using the wrong terminology there. And there are frameworks that are cyber derived, focused on cyber, that are akin to Sophia and the government digital framework, but they're quite specific and for good reason. And so what we never do is say, well, we should all use one framework as opposed to yours. We very much take and the system is designed accordingly to be inclusive. So we can take and replicate, as we've done recently with a number of clients, a specific cyber framework with containing sets of competencies, etc., and bring it to life in our tool, because our tool is specifically designed to bring frameworks plural to life. So that's one. So once we've explained that, you know, we're not precious about which framework to use, as long as there is some structure that underpins what it is we're trying to do, then that's often a really significant step forward. And that's probably the main one. It's just an adopted inclusive approach. Any other objections are often satisfied by a simple presentation of evidence. For HR, as another example, how can we help with recruitment? The way things like Sophia is written, it's almost without exception the content is used to improve the recruitment process, simply, as I say, simply due to the way the skills are described, because it's the voice of those people in the industry who possess those skills. So, but yeah, we're very clear to be inclusive in our approach.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andrew. And I think I'll hand over to you now for a slight demonstration of the system to kind of cover off the last 2 points and maybe revisit some of the other points around how RoleModelplus can really kind of help with the 3 key things here, around kind of examples of early wins and long-term benefits of utilizing a tool such as this, and then maybe some practical tips of getting that buy-in and covering off that last point. Sure.
I mean, I wrote down a few, which I will cite now, and then I'll take my stance I've just mentioned and evidence-based them. But forgive me for looking at my other screen. So some early wins and long-term benefits. So a very early win is the ability, and I haven't written it down actually, but the ability to very quickly create, typically, but not exclusively, IT and digital role profiles. The systems we have in place do accommodate other professions, but I'll keep it focused just on IT and digital for now. So that's one. Excuse me, my boss is trying to call me. Another one which is often not cited, but it is when we socialize, and this is probably, should have mentioned this in the when it works well, or hints and tips, is it's really important. Again, I'll focus on Sophia and Sophia Plus, which is an evolved version of that framework, is socialize what the framework is. So your roles may, when this is during the proof of concept, we plan as an organization to use Sophia Plus because it represents industry informed good practices. There's a whole process which I won't talk about today that results in the continued iteration of that framework. So be very clear as to, we as an organization want people to be mindful of these good practices. We're not replacing everything that we do with them, but we're going to inform part of it. That is good. And when you're doing that, people will take the opportunity more often than not to say, well, actually, I'm a software tester, but in a previous employ or a previous role, I have these other skills which I believe I still possess. So the ability to capture latent capability is a good quick win, and really then starts to underline that whole evidence base. So the development and creation of, or the identification of skills data is really, really powerful first few wins. The way the system works, and I'll use this to segue into a demo, and I'll try and multitask and activate my screen as I'm talking, is when you've used frameworks. Can you see my screen, Sam? Thanks. When you use frameworks, and when people, start to what we refer to as benchmark against Sophia, others are available, Sophia content in a role. By doing so, they're instantly leaving footprints on other roles in the organization. So if I was to build a business analysis role, and I'm selecting various skills, and I'm going to assume a certain level of awareness of what Sophia and other frameworks are all about. And then I turn my gaze to a solutions architect role, and I select a certain set of skills at certain levels to replicate that role. There is an overlap. So by benchmarking in the BA role, I'm automatically leaving traces or footprints on other roles. And that is the basis of the staff mobility, the evidence-based staff mobility, which I will show you. Just bear with me, I'm going to log into our tool. So role model, again, is simply a tool which has been evolved over, I'm not going to say how long, but a long time, working with clients. So it can be quite complex. My objective here is to make it less so I happen to see everything simultaneously, but most individuals just see an area called My Development. So Sam, just keep me honest here. We're going to have a quick look at some easy wins. So we talked about benchmarking, we talked about data. So I'm going to quickly look at the data. So once you've created, you've decided to adopt various frameworks and use those content of various frameworks in your role profiles, people are on board. Another thing to do in no particular order is to embed learning into the frameworks, because people will ask, once you've done they'll go along and benchmark, then we'll quite readily identify skills gaps based on roles which have been carefully crafted and published. The next question is, well, now what do I do? So whilst you're creating the roles, or maybe part of your initial positioning, because there will be an anxiety associated with the benchmarking activity, almost without exception, if you're able to be clear about the objective is to develop you, and to further evidence that statement, you need to, whilst ideally, but not you have to, but ideally when you're creating a role, you're embedding learning, maybe a learning pathway, maybe a link to an LMS system that you're using that has a learning pathway relevant to the role. And it's just simply a case of embedding that link in the tool, and that's a thing that the tool can do as well. But certain easy wins. I'm in a sandbox environment. I have a role assigned to me, so I'm sort of replicating a number of things, but I'm going to look at the tool, think in order. What does the individual get out of it? So I'm going to go to an area called My Development. I think there might be some users on the call as well, perhaps. So this might be quite fairly familiar. But if you've activated it, you can allow, and this is again within this statement, there's another advantage of what makes for a longer term relationship with a client is complete transparency. You don't have to, but I would urge everyone to just switch on the button that says, I want all my staff to see all the other roles that is a skills match to them in some greater or lesser extent. So that's what I'm going to quickly do now. So the moment Sam, as my manager, ratifies my benchmark, we now have the ability to add evidence to said benchmarking. So I can add a certificate to a statement. I can add some free text to a statement, which I think adds additional robustness to that. How do I know that person can do what they said they can do, other than the manager ratifying it, or an SME we can float in? We can now add evidence to that benchmarking process. I think that's quite critical. And that, as we know, is a requirement of central government. Just another example of how we work in partnership with our client base. So I'm in the tool. I'm happily benchmarking against my role. I'm actually believing, bear this in mind, that I'm overskilled. So instead of looking outside the organization, I'm going to look around and see what else is available to me in terms of a skills match. Whether that role is available or not remains unknown at this point, but I'll click on a button that says role profiles, and that simply is all the published role profiles in this sandbox environment. And it says here, you can see I've done this before, it's added as a favorite, but I'm a 70%, 75% match to this particular role. And this is a hybrid role. So within the tool, we have all the government taxonomies, both framework and roles. So this is a hybrid. So we've taken that as a basis. We've added a few Sophia Plus skills, which is typically what government organizations tend to do these days. So get the best of both worlds, they would suggest. I'm a 75% match. I can click on it and it will tell me. So I'll quickly do this. But again, with an assumed level of understanding of Sophia. Sophia is a list of skills. GDAD is a list of skills at various levels, combinations of which equate to a role. Now, I, in some previous life, have benchmarked against either another similar role, whether it's my role, whether I've done a benchmark against the underlying framework. Wherever it's happened, I've got this set, and it says in the system there's an area which we haven't got time to go into, but I can see a dashboard for myself. The manager can see a dashboard for me of my approved skills, some of which have been, well, all of which that are approved have been overlaid to this role. So these skills here, I have basically a one-to-one. It's the right skill at the right level. Brilliant. These skills need to be developed, i.e. I have the right skill but at a lower level. And then these skills I don't have. And because we use frameworks, there's this concept of skills adjacency, that I might have a skill in the right skill family, but not the exact match, but there's a correlation or relationship between the two. There's also a level of granularity as well, which is really about the Sophia Plus framework, which is a detailed version. It contains things like industry work activities, qualifications, etc., etc. But we'll park that for now. Again, this is easy wins, believe it or not. This is in the category of this is an easy win, because the moment you've had it, as I say, had a skills benchmark ratified, this becomes out of the box available. You may have noticed we can construct a career pathway. It operates in the same way, but we've set the tone. Most of our clients' organizations just preferred the wildcard view. I just want you to tell an individual where else their skills reside. But this is, again, a fairly complicated role. It's pretty, actually, no, it's pretty standard. It's a government role primarily, and it's a combination of skills, and I have the opportunity to benchmark. It's simply telling me that some skills I'm over, some I'm under, some I don't have, some are pre-approved, and I can benchmark. I just want to leave it on the point. I'll leave it on the point of data, actually, but after we've done this. But if this is an example of me doing a really sort of quick and replication of how you would embed learning. So when we were building the role, Sam and I chose to, because we're both BCS members, but that's all we're saying there is it's another environment through a password protected page. Because we use single sign-on protocol, we've taken what we think was a relevant piece of learning for this role, and it happens to be something that sits with membership, as I said. If I clicked on that link there, I'd go off to another environment, and I can then conduct the learning. What you do in reality, as I've done here, is I've added it to my development list, which is all contained within the system. I have a development plan. So at the point in time when I'm ready, I've taken that, already placed it in my plan. When I've got a bit of time carved out, hopefully the organization is allowing me to do that, I can go and complete that learning. So linking learning to roles, I can't stress enough how important that is for the longevity of these endeavors. Okay, so that's out of the box. The moment benchmarking has been ratified, people can then see you've got complete transparency, and you can promote that. Come and work with us, and everything's on the table. Whether or not there's an opportunity to move is another matter, but it's a transparent playing field. And just finally, if I may, Sam, quickly to reporting. Again, I can see everything simultaneously, so forgive me if it looks a bit confusing. I wasn't going to do this, but as it's there, and we deal in Sophia Plus terms. Again, the moment the benchmark's activated, we can see very, very clearly, either at a very high level, skill level, or a more granular level, i.e. this one, where we need to target our development. And I'm just rehashing what clients say about the tool. This is how they actually use it. So I know that there are specific statements within roles that are there for good reason, and people say, I can't do that. Managers agree to it. It's a genuine skills gap. What do we do about it? We could speak to our training provider. We could no doubt recommend some things from BCS perspective. What you would endeavor to do in the first instance, there's one called commercial orientation. Two people don't have it. Again, automatically, you're able to look into your organization from okay, well, who does have that skill perspective? So I can quickly say there are 5 people here who have that skill at the right level. Before we spend any money on training, why don't we get one of those individuals to run a workshop? And the usefulness, another usefulness about dealing in Sophia Plus terms, which is a granular, so we get to Sophia is going to be really give up people the opportunity to break it apart, is because in this instance, it enables you to tackle pieces of learning one at a time, and you're not taking people out of the office for 2 days. You can just literally break down that learning pathway. And moreover, if you go to that level of detail and I'm a junior striving to fill Sam's role, I can't suddenly do all the things from a skills description perspective. I need to be able to break it down. What work activity, what behavior do I need to work on? That sort of thing. So that granular perspective of capability, gaps and capabilities is, again, straight out the box. And just finally, many reports we can produce, but one that I really like, I could look at a high level heat map of the organization. That's really, I don't have time to do it today. I'm looking at the top block now. But looking at this one here, again, we're in a sandbox environment, and obviously we can tell, because we've described our roles, what skills or what levels we want to use. There's a benchmark process that's happened. So we're now dealing with live skills deficits. I hate that phrase, but that's what it is. Because of the way the benchmarking works, people have the choice. They could say, okay, I know you need me to be a level 5 developer. Actually, I think I'm a level 6. Now that's their opinion, and now you can add evidence to that effect, and the manager can agree. Let's assume they have. You're now in the position, I can just toggle this to say, well, with that in mind, where in my midst am I finding people that are overskilled? Yes, underskilled's fine, and we can start to address that. That's probably normal for everybody on the call. But to be able to state, well, we know that we can see from this, again, it's a sandbox environment with limited data, but I have a team I'm looking at it through a particular lens of teams. I could look at roles, I could look at individuals, etc. But normally you do it for a role or a team. There's a team here that 14% of which say they're overskilled. Now amplify that by an organization of a usual size, 200 IT staff and above, perhaps. That could be quite compelling. So what are they thinking? If they're actually they're overperforming, where does that leave us? Are they a risk? Are they thinking of leaving? What can we say to that group of people to encourage them to stay? What I would say, I would point them in the direction of I'd say, career pathway we just showed before. The system will automatically tell that group of people, that is a real world example. You're a BA, were you aware that you're a significant skills map to a solutions architect? And we know that most organizations, they're quite challenging to recruit. It's better to try, if you can, to develop within. So that is a good tell and a good example of how you can use a system to effectively grow your own. I'm going to pause for breath there, Sam. So I think I've challenged a few easy wins, some long-term gains. I'll be here all day talking about reporting, but the ability to begin to interrogate the data, identify areas of strengths, weaknesses, for want of a better way of putting it, and what you can do about that, marry those two groups together, embed learning. So there are some significant, I would suggest, easy wins. I'll stop sharing there for a moment. I'm taking it back. Okay, cool.
No worries. Thank you, Andrew. So we're coming to the end of the session now, and I think we've really kind of explored some good options there. But Barney, just in really quick words, what practical tips would you give to get some internal buy-in?
Thanks for the question, Sam. We did discuss this earlier, and again, it's really around, and that's why I think we'd all agree that proof of concepts are important. So we can say what we like, but it's great to have an opportunity to present the evidence. And what I mean by that is our ability to adapt to different ways of working. So we'll make recommendations, but we can adapt. It's critical to underline the fact that we adopt a collaborative approach. So we feel we can answer the question, what's in it for the individual and the manager. No doubt they're incredibly busy and under all manner of stresses and strains. HR are an important partner, and we know it's working really well, because when typically we get asked to come in and present to an organization, and this is done en masse, it's not as rarely it's an elective thing. It's like, we're doing this because we've been convinced that it will inform our workforce plan and help us achieve some of those aims. But collaboration is key. And all it simply is a conversation with HR. This is how it will help HR. This is how it will help L&D, the individual, the manager frame that development discussion, because the manager might not be an expert in a BA team, where if they've got the language of Sophia or GDAD or other frameworks, we can help have a more productive conversation. Yeah, and I'd say that, and just to plug the BCS, if I can, is that when we do get asked to stand up in front of audiences and the decision to be made to move forward with this, we can genuinely say, hand on heart, that we have a vested interest in the IT and digital professionals that we're standing in front of. The reason we do this, the reason we invest in for instance, that tool and a more detailed version of an example and adapt the tool for government, etc., is because we want to make IT good for society, which, you could argue starts with one organization at a time. It might, we know what we can influence. So we do have the individual at heart forefront. So when we say it's really useful to be mindful of these good practices, we actually mean it, and we think that's always going to be part of our sort of positioning. So who you partner with, I think, is important as well. Why not a professional body? I would say that I'm a bit biased, but that is a genuine useful sort of a catalyst or ingredient in these programs.
Lovely, yeah, and a good note to end on. Absolutely. So next session. So the next one's coming up next Thursday on the 31st of July. That's fresh perspectives and reflections after rollout. And then on session 4, which is Thursday, the 7th of August, is what next and how you can extract maximum value out of the tool RoleModelplus that you've seen today. So please do join us for the next 2 sessions. And we'll continue this amazing series around elevating digital teams. But I've noticed there are no questions in the chat, so hopefully myself and Andrew have stunned you all into total silence. If you do think of any questions going forward, please feel free to reach out to us at developmyteam@bcs.uk. Connect with myself and Andrew on LinkedIn, and please feel free to reach out. And look forward to seeing you all hopefully on the next session.
Thank
Have a
you
good
very
rest of your
much.
day, everyone.